Welcome to Conscious Insights, Strategies for Leadership Evolution. Engage in roundtable discussions that spark deep dialogue with executives and thought leaders to advance conscious leadership and explore innovative practices. Join us and gain insights that will elevate your leadership journey. Hello, and welcome to this session of Conscious Insights. Today, we're going to talk about mastering the waves, leadership in a dynamic world, strategies for navigating complexity and embracing change. And I have two very interesting and special people on today to talk about this subject. And I want to talk a little bit about each of them before we jump into the questions and or into the conversation. William Browning is currently the CEO of Clayton Early Learning in Denver, Colorado. And I've known him for over 20 years and know him to be a dear friend and a visionary strategist who is always looking for ways to create social change. And his current role is one of those very important parts of his journey. And Mark Michalek is currently the special agent in charge of the Denver field office of the FBI. And I will put both of their bios in the show notes, but notably, Mark also, at one time, was it in 2014, Mark, where you oversaw the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitive program. And so I find this intriguing to have both of you on the program. And I want to just talk a little bit about how it came about, and then we'll jump in. I gave this a topic to William, and I asked William, who would you like to also bring into our conversation so that we can have a roundtable dialogue? And he picked you, Mark. And so that is fascinating about when we're talking about leadership and change and complexity, to have both of you on the show. So that's one of the first things I want to ask is, William, say a little bit more about why Mark came to mind.
Well, Mark, I think, is an outstanding leader. I don't want that to go to his head. I think I had the pleasure of being with him at a Wall of Honor ceremony, and how he addressed his team and how he thinks about leadership within the public safety sector. I think is really pretty profound. We use terms like diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and those have somewhat been weaponized, but I think he is able to really leverage those very beautiful tenets into his work in a way that it doesn't. It's all about high performance teams and empathy and compassion. I also think it's interesting, just from a polarization perspective. My entire job here at Clayton Early Learning is to make sure that the next generation isn't on Mark's most wanted list. To be blunt, that we're avoiding had them actually being in the public safety system. So I thought it would be interesting, counterbalance. We're at the front end of life, and Mark is at a point where he is, helping keep America safe, and how those two dynamics actually work together. But I have huge admiration and respect for Mark, what he does for the community. My father was an FBI agent who was lost in the line of duty, so I have deep admiration for the work the Bureau does, and understand how personally how much sacrifice people actually make to protect our country, and he does it in a way that I was very impressed with his leadership style and his capabilities, and I think that'll show no pressure, but I think that'll come across in the conversation today.
Thank you. And Mark, tell us a little bit about you and what resonated with you when William made the call to join us for this conversation.
Well, first, I'm incredibly honored to be here with both of you. It means a lot that you included the FBI in the conversation, so thank you for that. It was an interesting ask when it came out. It wasn't something I had thought before, but as I thought through it, and in speaking with William, it makes a lot of sense. As he mentioned, we're both in public sector. We're both trying to make a difference in the community. We have different focus in our day-to-day, but the strategic objectives are the same. Particularly when it comes to the youth. The FBI wants to keep kids safe and alive and out of jail, just like William and his team. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Love that. So What is going on in society? We're in, from your view right now, as leaders who have been leading for a number of years, we're in a pivotal point. There is a lot of complexity. There is a lot of change. What's going on in society, and where do we need to go? What are you seeing?
Mark, I'll let you take a first shot at that one, just to put you on the spot.
Sure, sure. Happy to. So it is an interesting time to serve in a leadership role in public sector. And I think for background, many people aren't aware of the FBI and our mission. As you mentioned, I'm a special agent in charge here in Denver. The Denver office is responsible for Colorado and Wyoming, but we're a 38,000 person workforce. Denver is one of 55 field offices across the nation. We have 300 satellite offices, and we're in 60 countries. So, like other global organizations, we recognize the need really for agility and innovation in modern society as we adapt to this breakneck speed of change. Our mission is to protect the American people and uphold the Constitution. So that sounds simple as a phrase, but incredibly complex to execute in practice. So change and complexity is a constant for the FBI mission set. I can get into threats and things later, but we're a microcosm of society. We're all in the same boat. We're all operating in the same environment where we're adapting to things at an increasingly fast pace, whether that's modernization, technology, just globalization, and things that we're seeing around the world and the country. We've got to be able to adapt to that, while at the same time building an organization, building a culture, and leading from within. So it's very difficult to walk and chew gum, but I think it's some of the fundamentals in the leadership philosophy we're going to talk about today that really helps us carry the day.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, from
William?
my perspective, I think what you're seeing is from my view, and this is just my opinion and for what it's worth. I think we serve 500 families that really are struggling, and we have another 170 folks that we work for Clayton. What I see across the ecosystem is people really struggling to find their way. Just to have the life that they really crave and desire. And I think it creates a huge amount of systemic anxiety. I think we're seeing post-COVID a tremendous amount of uncertainty, a certain amount of social unrest, a lot of anger and frustration. I think the election coming up is forecasting a pretty angry society on both sides, frankly, as far as where we are as a country. And I think that our view is, at least my personal view, is that it's about what we can do for each other and really trying to build a culture of belonging, of caring, and really focusing on the next generation, which I think we all can agree that we want our children to be better off than we were. But I do think we're as a leader, you're dealing with a whole host of issues that I think require a different set of strategies to manage through. I think the classic days of command and control structures are not necessarily going to hold water the way they used to. I think there's you've got to be more trauma informed around how people are actually dealing with their own issues. And I think I've yet to meet anybody in the last 2 years who feels really great and secure about where we are as a country or where they are as a family, or and really feeling that sense of safety that I think we all crave. So I really think that it's a really disruptive time. And Mark says interesting, and the Chinese always have the curse, right? The Chinese have the curse that says, "May you live in interesting times," which is really a curse more than it is a blessing. And I think he's right that I don't think anybody really has an answer or the barometer or the navigator for how do we kind of work through this. But I think we got to lean in as leaders and actually model new ways of thinking and ways of engaging.
As a person, I work with a lot of leaders from a conscious leadership perspective, and I say a lot this year, especially things I hadn't said previously, was like, when we heal ourselves, we will heal our systems. And I've even had some of my colleagues say, that's what we're doing, but are you really going to say that? And I was like, I am. At this time in society, I am going to say that, because that's what I believe it's going to take for us to shift through the times that we find ourselves in. Now, Mark, you mentioned earlier that the FBI is a microcosm of society. And so if we build off of what William says, that kind of the unrest and what needs to change, how would you say that from your perspective? How is what are you seeing and how is that adapting to, I mean, I would say the FBI is a leader in our society of keeping us safe. And so how does that, what is going on from your perspective, kind of responding to some of the things that William and I just said?
So I guess internally, when we look at us as an organization, we've got representation from all walks of life, from all different backgrounds, socioeconomic, gender, ethnicity, you name it. And that's why I mean we're a microcosm of society. So that diversity is really, I think, what helps us become successful, because it's that diversity of thought and that diversity of experience that brings everything to the table to help us work through some challenging times and some challenging threats. I think the common framework for all of us when you join a public sector organization like the FBI is that public safety work ethic. We are all here mission focused. It's no secret we don't join the FBI for the money or the fame. We've got to struggle and work through some really serious problems with no clear framework. We're often dealing with things with incomplete and imperfect information, where there isn't a checklist to be able to follow. And I think that, that common operating framework of focused around a mission, of doing more for the greater good, of being able to prop up the next generation, so that they're in a better position than we're in today, is what helps us focus. And I think a values-based leadership perspective also gives us the agility to handle threats that are coming. Take, for example, I joined the FBI in 2005, and in cyber crime, cyber terrorism was really nothing that we talked about. That is now here. The Internet of Things and globalization has made our daily lives easier, but it's opened doors for novel threats. So we've had to adjust as an organization to what the operating environment is giving us, which means looking at new ways to investigate crimes, looking at new ways to prevent crimes, recruiting folks with more technical and computer-based background to be able to help us understand what we see today and where we're moving forward. So I think the benefit of the FBI is that common goal to help others. That is really the interconnective tissue for us to focus and try to solve the complex problems that you described at the opening.
And both of you, we talk about values-based and mission-based. I mean, there's always been mission-based and somewhat values-based organizations that were still pretty hierarchical, not quite as operated very much that way. And William, you spoke of that's not how we're going to be able to lead into the future. And so talk a little bit about, both of you, like, how are we seeing that shift? Like, what does it really mean to shift leadership to be more values-based, especially, in organizations, yes, mission-based, but also there has been historical hierarchical structures in both nonprofit and, and government.
Yeah, and I see my role. If you asked me when I was 20 years old what a CEO looked like, it would be the commander, the director, captain of the ship, very much a authoritative figure, hierarchical at the top. I see myself now much more at the bottom of a hierarchy, trying to figure out how to address the needs for my team and not my team, the team, our team, and trying to figure out ways to really empower people differently. I think there's a couple of elements I think have changed in my leadership style in the last few years. One is being much more empathetic and curious about where people are and what they need to be successful, and trying to empower leaders to adapt to circumstance and address things. I think being a lot more patient in terms of stepping way back and really trying to understand the humanity within the organization and where people really are and what they really need, and trying to eliminate the sense of fear and really trying to build, true psychological safety, where people feel like they can ask questions when they don't know, or they can admit that, and I admit all the time, like I don't have the answer a lot of the times, and I think people look to you as if you do. But it's refreshing when a leader says, I actually need some help with understanding how the best course could be to deliver this. I think the other thing I'd say is that, we've implemented trauma-informed delivery here, which is really recognizing that everybody has some level of internal trauma. And we have families that we serve that have significant levels of trauma. Poverty deals out a tremendous amount of disparity in terms of trauma. So it's, we're really first responders in a lot of ways in the classroom for a lot of these kids in particular who have faced homelessness or faced food shortages or faced domestic violence and other types of issues. So for us, really building in leadership that's empathetic to that and trained around conscious discipline and we're trained around unconscious bias and really trying to understand how to see each other. And I think it's a work in progress. I don't think we're not, not an exemplar by any means on this process yet, but it is. As a leader, my job is not to command and control. My job is to get the most out of the organization's human talent caliber, and optimize that any way I can. And I think that it requires a different finesse than just telling people what to do and expecting to set deadlines and KPIs and everything else. That seems like management. It's much more how do we adapt to the changes in each other and really build a force of culture that is high performing in a new and bold way.
Thank you. Mark, what are your thoughts on that? Wow.
My experience is very similar to Williams. I think the importance of having value-based leadership or people-based leadership is that you're able to be flexible, to be able to adapt to whatever challenges are coming your way. I was fortunate to attend and graduate the United States Air Force Academy and was an active duty Air Force officer, so kind of had that hierarchical leadership training in the military. But some themes were able to come out of that I've been able to employ as a leader as in the FBI. They make you memorize a lot of quotes as part of that training, and a couple stuck with me for the duration. The first is there's no limit to the good you can do if you don't care who gets the credit. So that speaks to humility, right?
I love
Humility
that.
as a leader. I don't need to be the center of attention. We can get good things done when we work together. And then the second is a perfect plan executed, or a good plan executed now is better than a perfect plan executed next week. We're not afforded the ability to hit the pause button on the challenges and the threats that we're facing, get ourselves together, and then unpause it and move forward. So a very pragmatic perspective. I see the people as the potential energy as the organization, and as a leader, I'm there to support. And as William said, get the best out of them that they can be. So it's my job to block and tackle and remove barriers and provide opportunities and resources for them to be able to thrive. We also have shifted over the past few years when it comes to trauma-informed leadership, both internally and externally. We've created a huge victim services division now that we didn't have when I joined the Bureau as a result of critical incidents that we've had now. There's a recognition that you just don't investigate a crime and not think about the victim. When you run from a mass casualty incident, there's personal property, whether you're injured or not, that impacts you, right? And so there has been a fundamental shift, I think, in law enforcement when it comes to recognizing that and embracing mental health as a component of overall health. There's just been a lot of changes in research to recognize. We're asking our frontline folks, our first responders, and in education as well, that we're exposed to things that humans aren't wired to be exposed to on a regular basis. Just the volume in just sheer magnitude of trauma we're asking our people to deal with on a day-to-day basis it's really, really difficult to work through. And so now we're building support processes in place to be able to say, hey, create a culture that it's okay to not be okay. And we are going to work to get you to where you need to be. And you're not going to lose your badge or your security clearance because you're seeking help. So as a leader, creating that framework and modeling that to create that safe zone so that people can take a time out, get back up to speed, and optimize their performance to continue to accomplish the mission.
And that is a really different place than where I think most of us were when we started our careers. And, reflecting on what you both said, Mark, I have an 8th grade daughter that wants to go to the Air Force Academy. And so just last week, we were on the phone with an admissions person from the Air Force, understanding what it takes to get into the Air Force Academy. And it takes a lot. But a couple of things he said to us, or to her, over and over again, is the character needed to lead the country and to be in a position like that for our country. And I couldn't count how many times that he kept saying that over and over again. And then, yes, we talked about SAT scores and we talked about different things, but he emphasized her involvement in community, her leadership, and showing that at a young age. And so it was just, it was profound to me because I didn't take that path. And so it was really interesting. So thank you for your leadership and for what's to come for those of us that have, the future generation coming up. And William, I've known you for over 20 years, and to watch your leadership shift and to see your brilliance and your humanity, just grow and grow together. I mean, it is such an honor to watch that, and people that are led by you are really lucky, and I'm lucky to be your friend. So
yeah, that's kind. I
thank
don't think I would say I'm brilliant by any means, but it's nice to. Thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it. I don't do compliments well.
He doesn't. So that's why I'm doing that on air. And William and I have been through a lot. It hasn't always been 20 years of, we've had our trials and tribulations, and we've always come out, as better leaders and better friends. So there's something about, the heart. I mean, we're really talking about the heart. So where do we go from here? We're talking about how things are changing, and yet we still face a number of threats. Mark, you talked about early on, we might, there are some threats that we're facing. William, you talked about the post-COVID world that we're seeing right now. So even though we've made and are making so many adjustments, we still have a lot of complexity to work through. What are some of the biggest things we're facing?
Wow, how much time do we have to be able to talk about that?
Episode 1 now, and then we can always do chapter 2 at another time.
Yeah, I think I guess in broad terms, the speed of the Internet of Things and the speed of technological advancement is something that spreads across threat spectrums for us. AI is a lot in the news now, and what that looks like. And there's some bad things for AI, and there's some good things. But either way, it's going to change the dynamics. In the FBI, we have a series of pillars that we focus on, because the volume of threats we're responsible for is so wide, and it's hard to kind of sometimes miss the forest through the trees. But two of those pillars, number one is people. We focus on who we do the work with, meaning partners in the intelligence community and law enforcement, in addition to the FBI, and who we do the work for, the American people. And that helps ground us. But we have a significant focus on process, on doing the right things in the right way all the time, every time. Because we're in a unique position that at the end of the day, if we take law enforcement action, there is somebody that's not going to be happy. And that's okay. People are entitled to their opinion. But if we focus on process, if we focus on methodology, on that values-based, on the importance of integrity, you may not agree with the outcome, but you are not going to be able to question the way we got there. And that has helped us, kind of the wind to our back, to keep us moving forward with all of these diverse and asymmetric and heightened threats that we face every day.
I find that fascinating, because part of my work is trying to always focus on the outcome rather than the problem. And I like how you reframe that as, you might not like the outcome, but we question the process, the integrity, the values that got us here. That's powerful. Thank you. William, what's your sense of that, of the question, or of what Mark said?
No, at Clayton, we don't have to deal with too many major national security threats here. We're a pretty calm little organization. But I do think there are commonalities that we just he brought up. I think one is that it is people focused. I mean, for us, it's not threats to the organization. It's really I look at early child education. Ironically, is probably a small facet of national security in its own way, because if we don't have really great early child education, you don't have strong kids. You don't have you put them in the public safety system. You dilute the workforce. You dilute our military capability for having good soldiers. You do all these things erode, and they start with birth to 5. But I would say that the big thing is for us on the people side is, how do we keep the mission is critical, but how do you really ensure that the workforce is motivated and focused on and helping that next generation? And so workforce is definitely our biggest threat. Educators are burnt out. They're underpaid. They're not compensated enough that they need to really make a living in Colorado. It is a significant threat to the organization and to the community that early child educators are not staying course, or not staying in the programs and in the centers. They can get equivalent jobs in retail and without the headaches of dealing with kids that are off the spectrum, or the trauma that happens within a classroom, or with parents who are dealing with economic challenges. So I really think that Mark's point is right on. We're probably less on process than we are really on the really formulative side, on the people side, really understanding how to motivate, how to inspire, how to help. We are setting a whole initiative around the family. Like we're doing, you'll laugh at this, but it's like, really understanding the journeys a family has with our relationship with them, and trying to put the family at the center of our customer journey experience, and then really trying to build our values around that a little bit more, instead of the families just coming in and doing their thing. Are we really a partner with them and their journey? So I think that's the last thing I'll say is the values piece. We have our 6 values. They are cement for us, and we really try to build them into the culture in a way that you call them when you see them and being called out the right way. You call them when they're not being executed the right way, and you recognize and mobilize people around them. It sounds kind of crazy, but we have seen a huge amount of empathy building and love within the organization and belonging with the organization just by focusing on those 6 core values religiously.
Yeah, absolutely. I know with some of my executive coaching clients, sometimes it's just getting back in touch with your values that is the most transformative thing they can do. Yeah. Let's talk about artificial intelligence for a second, because you hear so much that AI is going to get in the way of people and humanity and et cetera. And yet both of you, and especially you, Mark, are saying because of AI, because of technology, I hear you say the people factor and our values factor is actually even more important. And I'm certain that you're probably seeing things that, one, you probably can't talk about, and two, that just parts of AI that we can't see as non-FBI, not being part of the FBI. But what can you say, and how can we relate to what's the perspective on artificial intelligence, both from the threat and from the power of humanity in actually making it something that is not a threat?
So I think it just is. It depends on your perspective. You could argue both ways, and I think both are right. I think when it comes to threats, it amplifies the ability to have cyber attacks. You can increase the speed, the scale, the sophistication of attacks. So it can be very offensive, but it can also be very defensive in the cybersecurity realm, because again, you can automate your security protocols, and you can do machine learning so that you make yourself a harder target. But more broadly, AI has the ability to transform our lives. You look at public health, you look at education, virtually every sector, there is something that AI can do. So I think the jury is still out, but it's a good example of how we operate in the same environment. This is something that all of government, all of society is trying to adapt to, and it's here today. It's not something that we can sit on the sidelines and pontificate about or research. It's happening today. And so whether it's, state or federal legislation or regulation on how we handle things, that will come into play on how we, how we're able to deal with it. So I really think the jury is still out, but either way, it can amplify the good and it can amplify the bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for both of you, though, what about this fear that of people, like people, think that AI is going to take over being human. It's not going to take that over. From my perspective, and what I do for a living, I think AI has the on the good side, right, has the ability to actually bring out the complexity of who we are as humans, and we'll let AI do some of the things that has taken up our time and allow us to bring out even more of our gifts. I mean, that's the good side I see of this, and that's why I think the power of people and humanity and becomes even more important, and we can use so much more of our intelligence. What's your sense of that?
I think tell from the education side, AI is seen, largely as I would argue is kind of a threat right now, right? Because it's, the question is it affecting children's cognitive ability to be creative, to actually critically think, to be able to position that way? In our organization, we're seeing AI take root in terms of eliminating significant amounts of what I would call basic administrative functions. The things I used to spend time on 5 years ago, like writing a job description or those basic tier one responsibilities, they're gone. I mean, nobody in this organization is actually doing anything from scratch in terms of those kind of basic artifacts. And I think it's going to affect our HR, admin, legal, other operational capabilities pretty dramatically. I do think AI in early childhood education is going to be a factor probably in the next 5 to 7 years as you see more. I don't want to go sci-fi, but if you think about the robotic nature of an entity that could sit in a classroom and watch and monitor behavior and guide a teacher through managing classroom management and some other things like that, I think there are real beneficial capability. Because right now, the way that early childhood works is that you have to have ratios of a certain number of people in a classroom. So could you have AI as a potential way to increase the ratios for childcare and for early child education? I think it's definitely going to go that way. I think in our lifetime, you will see AI in an early childhood classroom being leveraged to integrate and engage and interact with children. I think that is coming for sure.
Wow. Yeah, that's changed. Mark, what about you? Like when we think about the AI at a deeper level, what do you see coming? What do you see there?
I see it impacting both sides of our responsibilities. First, in the threat landscape, as I mentioned, that's here today. We now have nation state actors and cyber criminals who have the capability to paralyze entire school systems, police departments, hospitals. That kind of thing we really didn't think about before as even a possibility. That's happening all the time. Criminals and terrorists are routinely exploiting supply chain risks and vulnerabilities that compromise our critical infrastructure and our private sector entities through intellectual property theft, ransomware, denial of service. That's all here today, so we can expect that to continue. Just in 2023, in terms of cyber-related fraud, Americans lost $12.5 billion nationwide. So again, that is here today, and I can only imagine it will exponentially increase in the future. Internally, it creates additional capacity. We're required now to ingest and analyze large amounts of data with scarce resources. Our budget is controlled by Congress, and I think if we doubled our entire workforce, we could still have work left on the table. So AI may able to help us have efficiencies in our business practices and how we ingest in prepare data to be able to make informed decisions and share intelligence with law enforcement partners in the intelligence community.
Mark, you just made me think of something. When had an accounting degree when I was in college, is what I was getting. And so I was recruited by the FBI. I did not end up working for the FBI, but the reason back 25 or so years ago that I was recruited by the FBI was because of the increase in, I think we used to call it, or maybe you still do call it, white collar crime, and really needed they were looking for a whole new set of thinking and a whole new set of I guess, agents because of that was the internet had just come out not too long before that. And so they were really looking forward. What is it now? Like, how are you recruiting now? What do you look for now? Where are you going to need in the future? What does the FBI need?
Yeah, so when I was recruited in 2005, it was the same thing. It was accounting, law degree, military, law enforcement experience, or specialized language background. We still recruit those, but over time we have adapted to what the threat landscape is today and where it's going. So we see more technical backgrounds, engineering degrees, IT, cyber type backgrounds to be able to help us stay ahead, both at the agent position and then also in the professional support staff. We now have computer scientists, data operating specialists that can help us digest and make sense of data we have. We've got a whole new intelligence career path for intelligence analysts to be able to make sense of all the different data and all the data points coming in to look at the bigger picture. So we're seeing the landscape of our recruiting efforts more technical, but we still have those fundamentals because, again, like the range of threats we're responsible for, we need that diversity of experience and diversity of academic background to be able to create, the off-ramp for the future that we can not only, mitigate these threats, but prevent them from happening in the first place. I thought about this when William was speaking about the model of how he leads in Clayton's approach to early childhood development, a focus on the whole person.
Yeah.
And that's very similar to us, a focus on the whole person. It's not just your 9 to 5, or it's not just the time you're in school. It's everything that's going on. You can't divorce the problems you're having at home when you come in and do your 9 to 5 job, right? So that focus on the whole person, and it also demonstrates that we're all interrelated. We're not operating in vacuums. And it's the same for the FBI. We have significantly increased our engagement with the private sector to be able to share threat indicators that we're seeing to help prop them up to prevent them from being a target, or if they are a target or a victim of something, that we can help give them the tools and the resources to be able to support them. So you're seeing an increase in speed in how we're moving in investigative work. We're seeing an increase in how we share information. But to Will's point, we can't arrest our way out of these problems. So we can't just look at it from a law enforcement perspective. There's public health, there's the court system, and so truly mitigating a threat is to prevent it in the first place. So we've had a dramatic shift in outreach to be able to get in schools as early as elementary school, to be able to prevent a kid from taking that first fentanyl pill, as opposed to having to arrest them or worse, that they've been killed.
Wow. I I remember the day when I would talk about whole person and whole person this and heart based and it was like almost like an underground topic of like that we were actually going to talk about these things at work. And the fact that we have reached a point in our society where that's what we're talking about at the FBI, that's what we're talking about at Clayton Early Learning, that I'm saying let's heal ourselves to heal our systems. I mean, we have so many complexities to solve, but and we're utilizing and we're finally realizing something that's always been here, right? We're remembering that it's the whole person that's going to help heal and kind of redefine our whole society. And I love that that William, you thought about, look at the two paradigms here of the early childhood and then what happens in the safety and the law enforcement of our society is that it all starts at the beginning and it all starts from a whole person. So that to me just gives me so much hope, as well as, yes, this is what we have to do to keep on moving forward. And so if we could talk for a long time, and I know we don't have that time. So what I want to do is, as we bring ourselves to a close, I just ask you to both of you to tap into your hearts even deeper than you already have. And tell me, tell us, what's your dream? What do you want to see? What is the FBI of tomorrow? What is the Clayton Early Learning of tomorrow? What is the United States of tomorrow from a leadership perspective and from a society perspective? And wherever that takes you, you don't have to answer the exact question. It's the essence of the question that I'd love for you to answer.
Yeah, I think we're 6 days away from an election, and we have a narrative that we're horribly divided, angry, frankly anxious. That's true, and I think. But the more when I walk the halls of Clayton and I see our families come in and I see them with their children, I really believe and have believed, as someone who's been around the world a few times, that everybody really cares about their children and their future. We can all agree on that, and I think. I do think that there have been times in our country where we've really been united. So I think if you ask me the future for Clayton, it's really trying to figure out how to continue to bridge love and belonging at the fabric that people feel welcome. They feel like they can be themselves, both as staff, family, employees, and children. That we are recognizing our frailties as a human, beings. That we are, really trying to think about how we lean in for each other a little bit more, and not cast dispersions, judgment, and all the things that come with an unconscious bias system. So I would hope that we can extend that to the rest of the country. I do believe that 49% or 51% of the people next Tuesday are going to be pissed off, and heartbroken and angry and divisive, and hopefully it doesn't ferment violence and other types of issues in the country. But I really believe at our core, I've yet to talk, whether it's a Republican or a Trump person or a Harris person or independent, that there isn't real passion for their children, for their grandchildren, for the next generation. And so I think we got to find ways as a country to lean back into that. And I'm delighted with our work that we get to be at an epicenter for that type of work, and thrilled to be able to, even if it's moving just a little bit around that hope and belonging, that we can create that culture here.
Yeah.
So on the FBI side, I see our future is continuing to stay ahead of the threat. We have a zero fail mission. We have got to protect the American people and uphold the Constitution. And regardless of the dynamic and heightened threats that we're seeing, I am incredibly inspired by the people. It's important for the American people to understand that you've got FBI employees that, regardless of what is going on in the media or the issues of the day, they roll up their sleeves and they report to work every day, and they do the right things in the right way. So I'm incredibly inspired for that, for the future, to see that we will be able to adapt to whatever threats come in front of us. I try to look for the common denominator, and as William alluded to, we've all got skin in the game. We all want to take care of our kids and our loved ones, and we want a safe country where that they can thrive. And when we focus on our commonalities, I think that helps move the needle forward to continue to protect us. Here in Denver specifically, since I'm the special agent in charge, I'm looking to continue to expand and kind of break up the traditional silos of law enforcement. Like I said, we're all operating in the same environment. So whether that's public health, that's education, that's socioeconomic issues, social services, we each have a piece of that we can work together, because we do have skin in the game. We're part of the same community. We have loved ones here that go to school. We all share the same interest to make sure that they are safe, that they are alive, and they're out of jail. Specific to propping up employees, I'm a big proponent of mental health, and I want to see us continue to move in the direction we're going. I lost my dad to suicide when I was 5 years old. He was a police officer, so I have a very unique experience of being a family member of a suicide in law enforcement, and now leading a law enforcement organization. So I've been able to compare kind of those perspectives to push the envelope to be able to get people to feel comfortable, so that in the future generation, we have no problem telling our partner we've got to go to a dentist appointment. Same thing should be, I'm going to see a counselor.
Hallelujah.
we just hired an employee
Yeah.
assistance counselor here, a licensed mental health practitioner. And I make it a point for the employees to see me with him, that I'm having my session with him, but continue to chip away at that stigma and to be able to get the resources that public safety really needs, the recognition of the amount of trauma that they're exposed to, whether that's a critical incident, a mass casualty incident, an officer-involved shooting, or just the cumulative effect of high risk, high stress assignments over time, to be able to get them the support they need, because they're putting themselves on the line for us. And I think we're at a point in our society where we can continue to push to embrace mental health as a component of overall health. And then to recognize that that's a function of performance. So when you're taking care of your people, right, they're making better decisions. There's less use of force incidents. They're more effective in the community. And then we can continue to grow to achieve, all the objectives that collectively that we're looking to achieve.
I'm going to say yes, yes, yes to you both. What I'm hearing, and more importantly, what I'm feeling, is that bringing the balance and the harmony of the head and the heart. The heart is an incredibly powerful instrument that we humans have, and those of you, how that are, for all of us, but those of you like Mark and William, that you're leading organizations and you're bringing that heart to the table, you're bringing your vulnerabilities to the table, and also the power, also the rational and the linear mind, but really leading with the heart. There is real power in changing society, and back to my original, statement of, we're going to heal ourselves, and then we will heal these systems. Thank you both, from speaking of heart, from the top, bottom, and middle of my heart, for joining us today, and for spreading this message and continuing to lead, and to lead with heart.
Thank you for the opportunity. Enjoyed
Absolutely.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was great. It was good. And thank you, Mark, for you continuing to inspire me, and glad to know you in the market, and want to continue to figure out how I can help you and Tyler engage, where we can in the community. So it's good stuff.
Thank you. Same to you, William. Would love to be more engaged with Clayton in any way we can help out.
You bet.
Thank you. For more information, visit insight-cc.com or email us at info@insight-cc.com. We look forward to hearing from you.